So, co-main event, Dominick Cruz, Urijah Faber. Third fight between the guys. First one, Faber won back in the WEC days at featherweight. Dominick Cruz later defends his title at UFC 132 against Urijah Faber in a 5-round decision victory. And now we get the third fight between them. I wrote an article that you can find on thefullmountainmma.com. It's just a complete breakdown of the fight, anything you need to know, how each fighter can win and all that sort of stuff. You were in the camp that Urijah Faber did not deserve this title shot. Why is that?
Listen, I mean, look, I'm all for, the name game, I guess you want to call it. But, I mean, and I understand, look, Cruz just beat, Dillashaw and things like that. But I just, where does Faber, what has he done? I guess is my thing to say, okay, you know what? You thrust, all he did was talk. And these days, and we've talked about it before here on this podcast, you could talk yourself into a title fight just like that in some of these divisions.
Well, this is the kind of the way the UFC works now. Like it's the title. I mean, McGregor, of course, is the guy that everyone points to. He says the titles don't matter. And it gets to a point where the titles matter in some divisions and don't. And when you see these guys acting like, is the title the biggest thing in the world here? And it should be, but sometimes it doesn't come off as such. Faber has won 3 straight fights at bantamweight. Alex Caceres, Francisco Rivera, and Frankie Saenz in a fight that didn't honestly look too good for Faber. His last loss was against Frankie Edgar at featherweight. But this is the sort of thing we're dealing with at bantamweight. We've got a bunch of young guys trying to come out. Aljamain Sterling lost to Brian Caraway last week, and now he wants a title shot. Because Caraway done enough? Not even close. Cody Garbrandt goes out and shuts down a very good prospect in Thomas Almeida. Yeah. Is Cody Garbrandt the future of this division?
He can't get in the top 15.
Yeah, that's as much as you want to throw the UFC rankings under the bus, because honestly, it's a shame who actually votes. Some of the people who actually vote for that. It's absolutely incredulous when you look at that stuff. But when you see the guys like Garbrandt and guys like Caraway pining for a title shot, it makes you think, like, oh, maybe Faber kind of fit into the spot. TJ Dillashaw, of course, lost to Dominick Cruz in what some people called controversial. I thought it was the right call, Cruz winning that fight. Javier Sunsao had been out for a while. He fights Dillashaw at 200. So to me, that kind of makes sense. And Faber's the kind of guy left without a fight, and you want to make a big fight. And these guys sell the fight. The old fighting cliche that everyone loves to say, these guys don't like each other. Well, yeah, they don't like each other. They talk a lot of smack towards one another, and it sells the fight. And that's why Faber is in this position right now.
I mean, yeah, because he can talk. And that's what I don't understand is, look, there was also a guy that needs a fight that's a champ too. Why don't you start making some super fights? I mean,
I'm totally on board with you with that, with Demetrius Johnson, Dominick Cruz. I want to see that fight again, because watching that back, watching their first initial fight back in 135, it's a very different Mighty Mouse right now. But you saw the shades of him, about to become this guy where he's like, oh my God, he's going to dominate the flyweight division for as long as he has. But when you look at this fight, regardless of whether Faber deserves the title shot, he's got it. It's his 4th title shot. He's never won a UFC belt. Of course, he's a former WEC featherweight champ. Mm-hmm. How does Urijah Faber, who do you give the advantage to this? When you look at this fight, when you break it down, how do you see it?
I mean, I watched Cruz, and he lived up to his name. I mean, look, he had glimpses in the Dillashaw fight where I was like, oh, maybe a little rust, but all in all, and then I think he actually had an injury too, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he get injured a little bit in that fight?
Yeah, I think he tore his heel, or he did something in his foot.
Yeah, in his foot where he couldn't, because I was like, uh-oh, here we go. But, I mean, he didn't look like he missed any time, I mean, compared to what I thought was going to happen.
Which is insane.
Yeah, and you look at, Faber, I don't know what he can, I mean, look, the guy fights. I mean, I'm not going to, he's got a heart, whatever you want to say, the heart of a champion or whatever you want to call it. But I just think Dominick Cruz is at a different level right now. I know back in the day, look, Faber beat him, and then he beat Faber, but I just don't think he's got it right now to stay with Dominick Cruz in this fight. I don't. You got the puncher's chance. I mean, everybody's seen how that works out. I mean, Stipe Miocic, I mean, he's walking around with the UFC heavyweight title because he landed a punch and baited. But I don't think Dominick Cruz has the head and that mentality to where he's going to go in and get off of his game plan. You know, I mean, you saw, Verdum, when he got off his game plan, he starts charging in at him, and he came in sloppy, and he ate, the right hook, and down he went. Yeah. I don't see Cruz giving that opening, and I think that's the opening that Faber's going to have to get in order to win this fight. I don't see it going any other way. I mean, I don't see him getting a submission victory on him. I don't know. I mean, watching the way Cruz looked in his last fight, I thought there would be a lot more rust there.
Yeah.
And he looked good, and that scares me.
It should, because you're looking at a guy, Dominick Cruz, he's coming off 3 ACL injuries. He tore the first one, then the second one didn't take, and then he gets hurt again, and then he tears a quad. And this guy, the biggest, you mentioned the Dillashaw fight, he looked exactly the same. He does this circling. He does all this movement. He always feints and moves back and forth. He's the most active fighter when it comes to just moving around the octagon that we've seen in a long, long time. And if he does that, he usually wins. And people call him the decisionator for it. And it doesn't matter if he's still winning the belt. Yeah. He beat TJ Dillashaw and won the title after a 4-year layoff.
I mean, his takedown average is 2-1 to Faber.
His wrestling is great. Yeah. His sprawl is terrific. And I kind of equate it to this. And you mentioned the puncher's chance thing. And like, you can, in the article, I go a little bit in depth, but I want to break it down here. It's kind of the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner analogy. I like to put it this way, where you've got Cruz who's moving around and moving around and moving around, and you can't touch him and you can't hit him, and it's the way Anderson Silva would always move back and forth and duck punches and do all this crazy stuff because he was that fast. Dominick Cruz is that fast where he can circle and move, and he may get hit, but they're glancing blows, and he knows, I can take a hit there to do this. Cruz is always 3 steps ahead. He's one of the most intelligent fighters out there, and his intelligence combined with the fact that his footwork is so it looks so unorthodox, yet it's so precise when what he does left and right and going back and forth. It's so hard to tag him and do something about it. And he can just kind of dive in and do whatever he wants. And the thing with Faber is the way he wins his fight is he catches him and does that little 5-foot sprint to close the distance and jump all over him and hit him again and knock him out. Or because I think Cruz is too good to be caught in a guillotine like he was in the first fight.
Well, I guess if he can land a punch though and get his back while he's droggy or whatever, he might have an opportunity. But it's all going to come down to him landing that punch, to set everything up.
That's like he needs to catch him flush and then go for it. Because you don't get many opportunities against Dominick Cruz to, number one, hit him. Number 2, hit him hard. Mm-hmm. And number 3, if you do hit him hard, to be able to jump on top of him, because we've seen Cruz in these wrestling sprawls, and he can just move so quickly and so elegantly and do these transitions back and forth. It's like he's watching the fight from above while being in the fight. He can do all these crazy things. And Faber is a fighter. Faber is active. He goes for it, which I love when I watch him fight.
No, I love watching him fight, but I just don't feel that, as a fighter, I mean, he's a great fighter to watch, but I just think that sometimes they let these guys talk themselves into title fights, and it just doesn't make sense to me how now he's number 2, he is number 2 in the division, but you look at some of these other guys that I'd rather see Cruz. I mean, now after watching, Garbrandt the other day, take on Garbrandt or somebody like that, rather than see Faber get his 4th shot at a title.
This is it for Faber.
Yeah.
You have to imagine this is it. Because...
But let me ask you this, because, we talk all this stuff all the time about the fight. And what happened with Miocic, you see the puncher's chance thing. Faber wins his title. As long as Dillashaw wins his next fight, it's going to be Faber-Dillashaw, right?
Oh, completely. I mean, if Dillashaw loses and Faber loses, they'll do Dillashaw-Faber.
Yeah.
If Dillashaw wins, do you give him that title shot again?
I mean, it's been a little while. I understand not giving it to him right away, but if he looks good in that fight, I don't see how you could keep him from not getting a title shot.
Absolutely. So it's such a weird spot, and you look at these rankings, and you throw the rankings out the window. You can use them as like an argument where this guy is in the upper echelon, this guy is in the middle, but these numbers are when you see the people voting on this, it's so arbitrary and so dumb because you have these great analysts that do all this stuff for the big things, and then you get these random dudes who we don't even know where you don't even know where they can find what they're doing, and they're still voting on these UFC rankings. I saw somebody who kept Aljamain Sterling in the same spot and kept Brian Caraway in the same spot, despite the fact that Caraway beat Sterling. This is the kind of people we're dealing with the rankings, so I don't put too much stock in that at all. What I do put stock in is they want to sell this. They wanted to sell this card, and Weidman, Rockhold, they needed a big co-main event to go along with it.
Yeah.
And Cruz, Faber sells.
Yeah.
Because Faber is one of the most beloved, and rightly so, fighters that we've had.
Not only that, but look
years.
where the fight is.
It's in L.A. It's great.
Yeah,
the Forum.
He's the California kid.
I didn't know that the Forum was still doing things.
Yeah, they're at the Forum, or is it at the Staples Center?
No, it's at the Forum.
Wow. Okay. All right.
It's
better dust that boy off.
Exactly. This is a fun fight, and more when it was first announced, we both talked about it, and we were Faber, does he really deserve it? We want the super fight. But now it's fight week, and I'm getting excited about this fight. And
Look, I like him as a fighter, and he goes in and he'll fight. That's I guess, he's going to have an exciting fight. I just don't know, how, is it going to be where he gets frustrated and Cruz just frustrates him, and it's going to be because at the same time, he gets frustrated and I don't say he shuts down, but you don't see the same Faber in the fight.
Yeah, that's for sure. And if he gets frustrated, Cruz has him right where he wants him.
Yeah.
If Faber doesn't get to Dominick Cruz early, he's in trouble because his frenetic pace will tire him out. He'll be able to do these things where Cruz is feinting and moving back and forth, and Faber will get frustrated and get suckered in and get tired. That's what happens. Cruz, he doesn't have the heaviest hands in the world, obviously, but he can suck the life out of his opponent by making them throw. Which is crazy because it's a fight and you want to most guys want to control it. They want to do what they do and make the other fighter fight the way they do. Cruz will just sit back, move, and make Faber just get so PO'd that he'll leave himself susceptible to these punches. And I think Cruz leaves LA with the title, 5-round unanimous decision victory. How do you see it?
Yeah, I got it. I mean, look, he's the decision-nator for a reason, and I think he's going to frustrate him for the five rounds.
I think it will still be a fun fight. I don't think it will be a boring fight.
I think he's going to frustrate him enough to where he's going to kind of just end up playing with him. I just think it's not that he's going to make him look silly or stuff, but he's going to be able to pick his punches when he wants to go out there and what he wants to do with this fight.
Yeah, I just can't get the Frankie Edgar fight out of my head for Faber because that's the last thing I can take against elite competition.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm saying. Every time he gets in a fight with elite competition, if you look at his record, he doesn't show up.
Yeah, so he's gonna. This is a major opportunity for him, and as much as people can railroad him for the fact that does he deserve it? I don't know, but he's here. It's a fun fight. It's a trilogy. It's got all the makings of one of those fights where people get excited about it.
And they don't like each other.
Yep, Trust me. It's the two things you'll hear all week in sports, besides when you're talking about the NBA Finals, is these two guys don't like each other, and Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard. That's all I've been hearing about in the New York area for the past, 84 days that Ryan Fitzpatrick has held out. But, man, I am excited for this fight. I think it will be very fun. I got Cruz by decision. You got Cruz by decision.
Yep.